Tell us why we're talking about this, Marina.
It is interesting. I think because we're talking about this because I am amazed, and I don't want to necessarily be, venting on this recording, but I am amazed at how bad the sales industry can be when their job is to be selling things, right? So if I am selling produce at a farmer's market, you expect me to have my produce, have my pricing, have my, have some change on me, have some bags for people to take things home with them and say hi, say bye, be smiley, be engaging, right? Like have the whole thing set up.
And maybe some knowledge about the produce would be helpful.
And maybe they know where the produce come from, and like if it's ripe or if I have to wait a few days, like how do I peel it? How do I cook it? Just kind of like.
Or even where's the broccoli? He could tell you where the broccoli is. I'm looking for this specific broccoli. I know you have. Where is it? You should know where it is, and you should guide me to the broccoli very clearly.
And if somebody asks you questions about broccoli, you don't take 3 days to get back to them about where the broccoli comes from. So I think it's just. We work on a lot of different types of projects, architecture and interior design, and we're always looking for things to use for projects, right? So it could be specifications for building materials, for finished materials, even sometimes for furnishing, lighting fixtures, all kinds of components that make a building a building. And we're always looking to use, not for everything, but different things because each project is unique. So we kind of cast a wide network of people we work with. And those people often are what we call sales representative. They are kind of like the people you contact when you're looking into buying or specifying a product. And we contact them because we need to know how available the product is, what's the cost, if there are different finishes or different options. It comes with different lengths, different sizes, right? We're trying to understand what are all of the options of that specific materials we're looking at to see if it fits and how it could fit our project. So we come up with a series of questions usually when we reach out to sales rep, and we need answers to in order to decide if we're going to use that material or not. And it always amazes me first of all, how bad most of those websites are for products.
Sure.
Right? Like I'm going to, I don't know, a wood siding website. I'm expecting to see listed all of the different species of wood that's, that makes up their sidings. Maybe pictures that shows like installed and what it looks like, aged or not aged. Is there different profiles? Are they pre-finished? Are they not finished? What's the price per square foot? What's the size of the boards? Do they ship to California? Where are they based? Just like basic stuff. Lead times, if there is. Are they like, I don't know, FSC certified, all these kind of specifications. You go on website, a lot of times you have a hard time finding like the products that they have. You don't really know what the company is about. Are they about siding? Are they a contractor? Like what do they do? You don't see anything about pricing. You want to order samples. You think that they would have a platform for professionals to do that. And it's just a lot of, you go to the website, you don't find what you need. So then you're looking for the email address of someone to reach out there to get some answers. And sometimes it takes a while for people to get back to you. And sometimes they get back to you and it's like just the most generic reply email. Oh, we got your request and here is all of, our brochures. And I'm like, I don't need to know everything about your company. I'm looking about this specific thing for this project.
Right.
So it takes a lot of time to, design takes a lot of time, and then deciding on what materials, and then finding that specific material can take a lot of time depending on how easy it is to find the information about the product.
I think that's why there's a tendency for professionals to reuse the same products over and over again.
Of course.
Because once you find one that is not only good as a product, but the people there, the sales reps are good, you don't really want to leave them because it can take a really long time to find that good person. And it saves you hours and, altogether days, like literally days of work you don't have to do because you can rely on the people you've relied on before.
So that, like you're building relationships, as you do those research, and those relationships are very valuable. And I always love when a rep gets back to me quickly, with clear answers. Sometimes you send questions, there is like 5 bullet points in an email. And they only cannot reply to 2. I'm like, okay, but what about the other 3? Like I need those answers.
I think, so there's a lot of stuff to talk about. I think that one of the things that sales reps maybe either they don't care So there's definitely some sales reps who just don't care about their job, or they don't know things.
Yeah.
But and there's those folks. But I feel like sometimes they don't understand what an architect or designer wants. Mm-hmm. What we want, as you said, is all the information accessible, easily accessible, and upfront. Because on our side, we have to think about you brought up maybe half a dozen different criteria or points about wood siding, and that applies to all other products and finishes and materials as well. We have to consider all of those things and then cross-reference and compare that to the other 3 other siding companies that we're considering. Yeah. And it's a lot. That matrix of information is a lot. And that is just one product of dozens of products in a project, and there's also a lot of other things in a project we're considering. So I think one of the roles of the architect is to distill information and to synthesize information, but we need the information to do that properly. And one of the most frustrating things as an architect is when you are trying to work and trying to do this complex problem-solving effort, but you don't have the information. You haven't been given all of the variables to work with. And now you're left trying to guess or leave in blanks, which makes us feel uncomfortable as a species of architects. And it's very frustrating. And so what happens is if we come across a company and let's say we were told, oh, this is a great product by a contractor, an architect, we somehow heard this is a great product, but we have a bad relationship experience, right, with the sales reps that we're describing. It's going to be tough for me to want to call them again because I just don't have...
I know.
It's not even... I was going to say I don't have the time, and it is the time factor, but it's kind of like... This is going to sound maybe egotistical, but the architect's job and how they feel is like we have all this stuff to deal with, like 1,000 variables to deal with, like I was saying, and that's our job. And we're like the composer or the conductor. We're like dealing with all of it. And your job as a sales rep, as the trumpet player, in the third row and the third part, is you play your fucking note. Play your note, play it on time, be in tune, and that's it. That's all I'm asking from you. You're one tiny bit. We're one piece of this entire orchestra. And if you can't perform correctly, I'm going to swap you out for someone else because I don't have the time. I don't want to deal with someone who's underperforming when relative to all the things I have to consider, your variables are simple. You have 6 things to worry about, and they're somewhere already listed in the company. You have that information already. There's no guessing game. You have it. For us, it's this matrix of 1,000 things, and we have to figure out what makes the most sense for this particular client, for the climate, for the schedule, for the budget, for all the stuff. And if you can't play that one note that you're supposed to, it's like, why would I put up with you? Why wouldn't I go with someone else who's going to make my life a lot easier, right?
Yeah, no, it's kind of, not to devalue the work that sales reps do, but you're right. Like, they're selling a product. They're not inventing the product as they're selling it. The product is figured out. It's just a matter of communicating correctly in order to make the sale. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of silly, but if you are a product out there and you have a product that you're selling, just put information that's clear and accessible out there, and I can guarantee that your sales are going to skyrocket because it is not common practice. Yeah. And it baffles me every single time.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm using Windows, for example, on a project. I need to work out window details. I need to see if that profile is going to work with the detail I'm trying to achieve. Put your freaking CAD drawings, your Revit files on your website. Some companies, you have to create an account, this and that. And sometimes,
That's
I feel like, fine, you want to respect, your, intellectual property or whatever, fine, I sign up. But if you don't have it, there's no catalog, it's a PDF, and it's like a pain in the butt to import that. Just make the stuff available. And I can guarantee that people would just go and use your product a lot more often.
Yeah, and it's also that, and when you have one person who is not being helpful, it can really wreck the schedule, right? So let's say we have 20 different sales reps we're working with for a project at any given moment, right? If all 19 are moving along quickly and efficiently, that's great. Then you have one who's a stick in the mud, and it takes them a week to get back to you to answer a basic email with those 5 bullet points, and they give you half an answer. It's like, okay, well, now we have to wait potentially another week, another 2 weeks before you get back to us. I call you, you don't pick up the phone. I call you again, you don't answer. Like, and this is like a serious problem, not just from the perspective of an architect who's annoyed, but now the schedule's impacted because of one person, right? Of the 100 of people that are going to be working on the project. I don't imagine it's the same way contractors feel about subs when they have subs that are either, direct employees or they're not. All the times, they're hiring them just for a specific job. If like that sub just doesn't show up, right, doesn't answer calls, underperforms, or just doesn't give them good information, the contractors can be like, look, you're supposedly good, you do good work, but if you're not reliable, I'm not going to work with you, because it's a ripple. It has a ripple effect.
Of course,
everything in a house and any building has a ripple effect. Everything's tied to each other. So, having a window manufacturer be delayed and not giving you the answers you need in a time efficient manner, or they just don't have good answers for you. Now we can't draw the detail, which we can't figure out the framing, and it just right. And so, on the architect side, it becomes actually like really, really important that you have a good, solid network of people, and you find the good sales reps, because for sure also you can have a company, let's say a door company, that it has a good product and maybe they have some good sales rep, but if you get the bad one, well, like, how am I to know that I just happen to get a bad one when the others are good? I don't know that.
Yeah, and I think, like, as much as the quality of the products matters in specifying a product or not, the service to sell that product also matters a lot, right? Yeah. If it's a great product, but you don't have any response, or you don't feel like you're being taken care of, you kind of like also lose trust in the product in some ways, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know, if I'm going to specify a wood flooring, and I know that my rep is super responsive, can send me any samples I want, any size I want, is available anytime, I have questions, they're there, and I know their product is good, I'm going to try and use that person and that product as much as possible, honestly, because I know that I can trust the quality of the product, but I also trust their team mm-hmm. to help me and my client, ultimately, on the projects. And I think that's very important because, also, like, once things are being installed, like, you never know, like, in 2 years, your client might have questions about the product, and it's always good to be able to reach out to the rep if you need any support or maintenance or advice on anything.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that comes to mind is the cost of the product, and the cost of a building and its components and the cost of the professionals, their fees, is a challenging thing. And I don't envy clients who are new to all of this, because most of clients' others buying experiences are more transactional, right? That's what we're more used to typically when we're buying a thing that's, it's pre-made and pre-designed. The price is up front. Of course, it's up front, right? The most shielded a price is if you go to like a nice clothing store, the tag is like maybe has no price on it, or the tag is folded over and you turn over, then there's a price. But for the most part, like, the price is like given to you. But in creating a building, architects' fees are never listed on their website for whatever reason. The fees from one architect to another grew very greatly. Contractors' fees vary greatly. How they bill are differently. And the prices of products, prices of the things that go in the building, the building materials, also vary greatly from one company to the next. And if you go on most websites of X products, there's no price listed for, like, a window. Well, I guess if you go like low-end windows, you'll see it at like Home Depot, but we're not talking about that tier. But like, you won't see the prices. And this is less a concern for clients because they're not necessarily shopping for windows on their own. But for architects, this becomes kind of an issue. So, and now also with the way that we work in getting ROMs from rough order of magnitudes from contractors, which just means estimates, construction cost estimates, I feel like it becomes more important for these sales reps and the suppliers to be very good at providing price transparency, like detailed and accurate price transparency for materials, if it's possible, or at least a ballpark figure for what we're thinking about. And so the reason why I think giving just blanket prices for products, building products, is sometimes difficult is because it can vary greatly, right? If you order more stuff, it becomes cheaper. Depends on the details. There's like many different ways to a window can be fabricated, even by one window company. Like what are the finishes, what are the sizes, what are the mullions, what are the mechanisms, all that stuff plays into it. So it becomes difficult to just give a sticker price on it. But having a person who's willing to have that conversation openly and quickly with you, it's a huge benefit. Otherwise, we're in the dark.
I think things that are easily quantifiable, like measured in terms of units, let's say, are easier to price for reps, right? Because they just have a system and they enter all the data and the system spews out like what's the price. Like Windows is an easy example. Once you select like what type of glass, what type of handle, what finishes, like what door window configuration you want, like they could give you a pretty good price. It's trickier when you're talking about finishes. For example, I had reached out to a company that was doing kind of like special finishes for exterior siding, and they're like, oh, we do like really, luxury finishes. I'm like, okay, well, I need to kind of understand like what you have a price per square foot just to give me an idea, so I can compare to like, okay, if I do, I don't know, stucco versus wood siding versus your product, like where does that align? And I understand that you can give me a quote because we're talking about something that gets applied to walls and it's about like, quantities of walls and all of that stuff. It becomes tricky unless you have all of the CDs, for example, to really do a good takeoff. But I'm like, I still need to understand, like, should I pursue in trying to give you that level of information because your product is viable? Or like, are we like way out of the budget that I don't even need to take the next step because you're out of my league for this project?
Yeah.
And I never really got an answer from the rep besides, oh, it's like, we do like really, really high end and being very mysterious. And I'm like, look, your product sounds super interesting. Like the finishes you're proposing, I've never seen that before. But the fact that you can give me a price, even a range, I don't know if I can use your stuff. Yeah. So and you're not communicating with me, so I'm just gonna forget about it.
The challenge with projects for clients, and this challenge also extends to architects and contractors, is the chicken or the egg dance between scope, quality, and scope and quality on one side, and the other side is the cost, right? And as you said, the way we determine the final cost of the project and its things is we do construction documents and then it gets priced. That's easy to do because they're known. The CDs outline everything. But to produce construction documents and to get to that point in design is an extreme amount of work. You're talking about 9 months, 12 months of work by an architect, let's say, around the 6 to 12 months, something like that. And so, of course, it doesn't make sense to spend all that time and fee as your client for an architect to do all that to then realize, oh, none of this stuff like works at all. And so we all do our best to kind of guess and project the cost of things, but having reps who are also willing to work in that manner and say, okay, I'll have a conversation with you and help fill in the blanks, so so you talked about windows, if we send out a preliminary window schedule to a company and say, here's what we're thinking. I know there's a lot of stuff not quite figured out yet, but I'll give you some basic parameters for what we're thinking about and where we're trying to go with the project. Can you put together like a ballpark range? And most of the time the companies it won't be a ballpark. They'll give you a number that's based on some calculations because that's how they work and think. But it's something, right? It's something to work with. And if you are an architect who needs to be that involved into the budgeting of the project, or you're a contractor, then those people would become necessary because it's, again, if one person takes 2 weeks to get back to you, so what, now we're waiting an extra 2 weeks to get an estimate because of one person? How's that going to fit into the schedule? Now the schedule was an additional 2 weeks behind because of one person, and you do that a couple of times with a couple other people, then now we're a month off because we had a couple people who weren't responding to emails correctly. And so it is, on the one hand, like I was saying before, like their role is small relative to the contractor and the architect, but it's like absolutely critical. Everyone's a block in the pyramid. You have one block that's missing, it just falls apart.
It's small, and like you usually, like architects starts thinking about materials like fairly early on in the project, because it works hand in hand with the design, right? If you're designing a house out of concrete, it's a very different design than if you're designing it out of, I don't know, glass block, right? Like,
yeah, sure.
So we're starting to think about materials in very early phases, and it's very important to be able to find that information and find it quickly, because you can pivot the design one way or the other depending on how quickly you get the information, or you can dive too deep into the design with those materials in mind and then have to kind of like go backwards. There is a website that I think we've mentioned before called Ace Lab that has kind of like a wide variety. It's kind of a library of materials you can
and products
you can browse on. They have all kinds of things from like finishes to, I think they have windows, they have like all types of building components that you can browse and search. So if you're like, okay, give me options of, I don't know, face brick, and in this color, in this price range, there's a bunch of different parameters that you can adjust to search, which is super handy. It's also a good platform to browse if you're looking for like more uncommon materials or things you've never used before and you don't really know where to go. Sometimes Google search is not really your friend because it can take you to places like out in the world that's not even near you. And that might not even be vetted by anybody you know.
Yeah, so and that's a good point too, the vetting, because Ace Lab is not just a generic, they don't just pull information from the internet. There's a team behind it. So you can actually message them in the chat, which all, software companies have these chat boxes now. And you simply ask, like, I'm looking for a material that's metal and it looks like that and needs to perform this way, or whatever your criteria is. And someone will get back to you and say, okay, here's 6 products we recommend based on your location and your lead time needs and your price criteria and all the stuff that you mentioned. And by the way, here's also specific reps at that company that we know who are good people to work with. And it's kind of like, I guess ace in the pocket would be the phrase, because it just makes it a lot easier. Otherwise, you're left to Google asking your own network for, opinions and whatnot. But everyone's biased to their own, recency and also their geography and their location and whatever else, at their network. Whereas Ace Lab, because that's all they do, they have the ability to find a bunch of other stuff and be objectively, critical about the things that they're recommending. So we found it to be very, very, very helpful. Going back to, you were talking about CAD details and 3D components and whatnot. I want to reemphasize how appealing that is for an architect or designer when a company has those done and they're accessible and they're done well, right? And it might seem kind of, I don't know, maybe the way that we work, and I suspect that it's the way that a lot of like high-end custom house architects and designers work, is that to vet and know if we're going to use a project, and we're new to a product, and we're new to the products. There's the costs and the lead times and the finishes, and there's all that stuff. But it's also even the technical details, right? So I can understand how this thing gets installed, so that one, I know if as best as I can tell, if it's going to perform, but also, so when it gets installed, what does it look like, and how does it fit together? And it could be also that we have a very particular kind of corner condition in this project, and we need a window or whatever it is to fit a precise way. Can this product perform in that way? Or a door, oftentimes, can it fit in this kind of zone? And to know that, we actually need to see the drawing, and we needed to look at it and maybe do a quick sketch to kind of think through it, right? And so that's an example of us doing, again, a little bit of testing, a little bit of work, a little bit of preliminary estimating, cost estimating, but also sketch estimating to see if this is worthwhile pursuing any further. And so, in some ways, we do actually need the technical drawing on day one of vetting this product. And I find that to be the case pretty often. It's not like, oh, you don't need the technical drawing now. You just need to know, roughly if it's going to work and the cost and the lead time. Well, roughly it working roughly, I need the detail to know that.
I know.
And it surprises me how many companies are like not really willing to do that. I'm like, but how am I supposed to, like, I'm just going to trust you? Like,
or sometimes they have the details. So it's like the saddest CAD drawing ever. And it's like, it's not even organized. There's not even dimensions. It's like, I'm like, what? I'm like, come on, like I think the thoroughness and again, to me, the quality of a product is not just about the final product. It's about the communication from the rep. It's about the level of CAD detail, the presentation, even the brochure. Is it clear? Like, just clear information. It just still baffles me.
And because all custom houses have these unique conditions. Even normal houses, I would say, always have a handful or more than that of like unique, weird conditions. So like I say that because maybe for someone who's not an architect, they might be thinking and saying, well, like, I don't understand. Aren't these all like standard building components? These window companies, door companies, whatever flooring companies have been around a long time. Aren't they standards? So like, why do you need to look at the details? And again, it's because there's always a bunch of atypical conditions and we need to see it. And the thing that baffles me too is like, let's say, I've been thinking about windows lately. That's why I keep referring to windows. Let's say you're a window company, right? I mean, how long would it take you really to produce, let's just say 2D CAD details of your product that were drafted accurately to scale and organized in the CAD space to where it was clear and showed where the finished materials would go, where the studs would go, and how the fasteners would take place? Like, how long would that really take? Assuming you had a person who's good at drafting and you had another person paired with them who understood the product through and through. I don't know, like 5 days? It would not take 3 days, a day? Like, it wouldn't take you very long at all. And it's kind of like the biggest void in the sales rep, product, material supply, whatever department that's missing. And it's weird because if you could do that and have all the architects know that your product, we have this set up for you. Like, it's a breeze for you to find out how this is going to work. You would probably like double or triple the number of customers you'd have.
Competitors.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, because no one does it. And it's crazy. It's like, for the amount of drafting and thinking and design work we have to do, as a company, right, a big company, let's say, it wouldn't take you that much time or money to do it. Like, what are you doing?
I know.
This is what we all want. I'm telling you right now. I'm speaking on behalf of all the architects. This is what we crave and what we want. And so it is a weird thing that it's not there. It's like, That and the next thing after CAD details is like samples. It's like, all right, look, it looks like you have beautiful material on the computer, but I'm building in real life. So I would love to see what that looks like in real life. You don't have a showroom because everybody's, remote and virtual and digital nowadays, which is fine, like, I get it. Like, keep your overhead low and just have everybody at home. But I need to see the stuff. So either you can send me to a project that's been using your product, which most of the time you can't because NDAs, privacies, they can, reveal the information of what things have been used, fine. Or you send me a box with samples. And actually, that is the best way is you could send me one random sample of one of the 50 products you have on your website because I asked for that specific one. Or you make a small box out of like a bunch of your leftover, product trimmed and whatever. Package it in a way that doesn't need to be super fancy, that shows me like, oh, the stuff you offer. I keep that in my material library in the office. And every time I have a project, that's the first box I'm going to open, look at, and consider. And I think, those sometimes are so hard to get. It's like, oh, we don't have samples, we can't. Or like, I don't know. It's just like, you have to pull teeth in order to get the stuff. I'm sure for the samples, it's a cost factor. It's not cheap to mail stuff, and then they're losing some amount of product. But samples are absolutely necessary. The other thing that we would like to see before samples are really good photographs or videos of projects. Now, that is maybe the first line of like testing that we would see of a product, let's say wood siding, for example, or anything like Tarot's, it doesn't matter, like clear, clean photographs that feel like they are accurate for the material. And of course, when you see something online, is it accurate? We truthfully don't know. Nobody knows unless you see it in person, but you can kind of tell, right? Like some places, they have photographs, I'm like, the lighting is, I can tell you shot this at dusk, you know, and there's like someone's iPhone that you use with a flash. Like, what? Like, that doesn't do me anything. Like, and I understand also, like, getting photographs is not an easy thing. If you're doing it at a really, really high level, you got to hire a photographer, you got to stage it, you got to order. But it's the gateway to the product. So like you kind of have to. And with the way that we all consume media now and social media and whatnot, it's like it's mandatory. And it does baffle me that if you have, I don't know, it confuses me too, because it's like you have one thing, dude. That's all you do. You sell doors. Right? You have like 8 different types of doors. Can't be that difficult to take some good photographs of your doors and to have the details up. Like, this is the part of me that gets annoyed. I'm like, it's not
almost
that.
Like, it's almost like, just hire me for a week and I'm going to revamp your whole like
if any architect wants to abandon architecture, I think there's a very good position to be I don't know what you call it, like a marketing consultant for all of the material and product suppliers that exist, and just tell them these are or they just listen to this recording. These are things you need to do. This is how you format the website. Just make it clean, clear, and understandable too. Like many websites are just very confusing. And I'm like, but it can't be like, you don't have that many options here. Like, why can't you make a website that's clear? It drives me nuts.
It's actually interesting because I feel like a lot of architects now hire, PR companies for their offices. I feel like product company in the construction industry should do the same.
Well, anyone who's selling something, I mean, when everyone's selling something, everyone has a business, you should probably have someone that helps you with marketing, but it's just so...
But the interesting thing, so I'm oftentimes very disappointed with websites of those products, as you can tell. And I ended up a lot of times going to their Instagram profile.
Instagram's great.
On their account, on the company's account, to see like videos or photos that have been tagged from other, customers and things like that, to see like close-up things, or maybe stories of like how the product actually works or how it's being installed. Because and that's also to tell you that the packaging of that information doesn't necessarily have to be pretty, let's say, right? Mm-hmm. If it comes to that. Like social media, if I can find that information there and it works that way, that's fine. Maybe just put that up on your website so I don't have to go there. But I actually found that social media is oftentimes much more informative than their websites.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And it's actually kind of interesting because it's a great thing, because the Instagram specifically becomes like this repository of a bunch of images, and there's not the pressure to like format it to fit on a website. Because if you took all the content on, any material supplier's Instagram, let's assume they're posting often, and they try to put that on their website in some kind of organized manner, that would take forever. That's like a full-time job to be like, how are we going to format this? Now this image isn't in line with that one. It's slightly different, but in Instagram, it's just a repository, and yeah, it's kind of interesting, because before social media, I guess the pressure is to put all that stuff on a website. I don't know.
Well, and before websites, it was just people had brick and mortar stores you go to and pick the stuff there.
Yeah.
Because how else would you know about products?
Well, then it's really just a referral. It's what do you call it? Word of mouth.
Yeah, and I'm sure, back then you probably were using more local things because that's where you were most exposed to.
Yeah, probably. So, I don't know. I think, the CAD details, the 3D details that's even like, it's much better, though that's more complicated.
The 3D detail, and again, I understand intellectual property and this and that, but, maybe you limit it to architects and designers to send it to and make sure that...
I don't interject. I don't, the whole being cautious or what prudent with their designs of their profiles. And like, I get it, but... You're telling me your rival window companies are not logging in as a fake architect and getting your profiles whenever they want? Of course they are. Like,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's there. Like,
well, it should be patent anyway. Right?
Yeah, like what the heck?
Anyway, but the 3D modeling for, let's say, furnishing, for example, hey man, that's key. Like if you have but seriously, if you have a 3D model of that beautiful sofa you're selling, and I can put that in, I don't know, my SketchUp or Revit model, well, and I can show it to the client, and I can do a rendering with your furniture in it, and the price works. Like hello, you know, like that's a huge thing, and you would be surprised. Like a lot of them, they don't, or even the big brand, you know, like BB Italia and like all of these guys. Like sometimes they have on their website stuff in 3D, but it's like it's crappy 3D. Like it's formatted weird, and then to browse, it's like you're like running through a really dense forest with a machete. You know, you have to like go to the website and like hack at pages and like close pop-ups and go dig down and like dig into the FAQ to find the stuff. Yeah, it's like, what am I doing? This is not detective work, man. Like,
I know.
You tell me you're selling sofa. Where is your stuff?
I know.
It baffles me.
Yeah.
Baffles me.
I think there's actually an AI software now where you can drop in an image or two of a.
There is, and you have to pay for all of this stuff, you know.
But that's what I'm saying
it's
too.
It's fine, but it's like if my client's gonna purchase your stuff, give me access to it.
I know.
You know, and worst case, they don't purchase it, but guess what? Maybe my next project they will.
I think the thing that Sue is a little frustrating for me is the amount of work it would take to do what we're describing is not a whole lot. It would make everyone's lives a lot easier. It would help you sell more products. So, like, why don't you do it? And your only job is you have this thing, and you're selling that thing. That's like it, man. You're like I said, the variables are known. You're not creating a custom house. You're not composing something. You take this thing and you sell it over there. You take this thing and you market. You take this thing, you give us the specs. Like, why is it so difficult? Why doesn't that bridge of information exist? Like here to there. And instead, it's just like you said, you're going through this jungle. It's like, why? The thing that I find also particularly irksome is that for the companies who are selling expensive products, you know, they're high-end, they're nice products. And some of the folks have a little like smugness about them, like, oh, this is like our sofa, this is our flooring, and blah, blah, blah. Like, oh, it's very expensive, it's very nice. Where's the freaking information, dude? Because on my side, right, an architect or designer, yes, we could be expensive, we can be high-end, we can have nice things and do really high-quality designs, but we also have to perform. We can't be like, oh, this is expensive, but I'm also not going to give you information you need, client. I'm not going to tell you how much it's going to cost. I'm going to be paying the ass to work with. We wouldn't get any work, right? And we wouldn't want to work that way anyway. So why do you have that attitude when you're a supplier of doors? Like, what is this? What are you doing? Right?
I know, it's like,
what are you doing?
It's like they're selling like the Holy Grail, you know. It's like this sacred thing that you can find, and if it's that, you can know about.
If it's that good and you're that good, where is the information, dude? Like, why aren't you good at your job?
Well, and again, I mean, all of that information is in-house. Like we mentioned, you know, the details for Windows.
It's there somewhere.
No, they have the CAD details because they're producing it in their factory, right? It exists. It is there.
And I know, like, the specs and whatever, you have it in a PDF somewhere. And then the worst, of course, is when they give it to you, it's like this horribly formatted thing that's like ineligible and not readable, and it's like, really.
The best reps are like the ones that are nice in emails, because also let's not talk about how people write emails these days. Like it's all over the place. Responsiveness, you know, when they reply within like a day or two, amazing, and they actually read your email and reply to your question. Like I'm actually talking to a human and not an AI person, you know. They send you like all of the stuff that they have. They offer you like samples. They can give you pricing. I mean, just.
I think maybe it's part of the reason why there's this discrepancy between the way architects work or what they expect, you know, from the people they work with versus these services we often seem to get from these sales reps. Is like, you know, I would say architects in general are very detailed people. Like if you, like again, if we're asked 6 questions, we answer those 6 questions. Like we cross our T's and dot our I's. We're not trained or born as people who are just going to be like, yeah, whatever. Like, oh, well, It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'm not answering that question. No, it'll be figured out. Not important. Like, we don't think or work that way because we can't. Because if you do that as an architect, you're going to mess up. There's going to be serious problems in construction. And then you have clients and contractors and everyone's very angry at you, and because you cost tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars of wasted money and schedule. And so if you make a mistake, you quickly learn, like, I'm not doing that again. I can't do that again. And so that's who we are. And so we expect something close to that. And I not to harp on it, but it is a very strange thing with emails. Like, I oftentimes, if I have an email I'm sending to somebody and I don't know that person, so I don't know how they're going to respond, and I need these things answered, I will, to your point, write it out in bullet points. I will even do it in numbered bullet points, right? So it's not just like the bullet. It's not just a black circle, a black dot.
Yeah.
It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because I'm telling you, I say, "Hi, blah, blah, blah. Nice to meet you. Blah, blah. These are my questions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It tells you I have 5 distinct questions. I need 5 distinct answers, right? That is an email that's the best I can do to tell you, like, I need these things answered. And it is remarkable how many people, they don't answer the 5 things. And again, speaking on behalf of the architects, it drives us mental. It drives us mental because that's not who we are. That's not how we practice this. We can't afford to operate that way. And if my team, and you are part of my team by extension, if my team is not operating that way, then you're not going to be part of my team. I can't afford that.
I mean, I could tell you that whenever someone doesn't reply to some of my questions, I will keep emailing back with that question until it gets answered. Because I need my answers.
Yeah. I think one time I had this is like childish behavior. This was a while ago, but like one person, I did that, they didn't answer my question. So I followed up, and then I waited X amount of time. They didn't get back to me. So I scheduled like 4 emails back to back, repeating the same question over and over again. And that doesn't do anyone any good, but to prove a point, it's like, dude, I'm calling you out. You're not doing your job. And I'll also say, too, on the subject of communication, some people, like, emails are tough because they can be interpreted different ways because there's not a voice behind it. It's not a conversation. There's no intonation. There's no pauses. There's no ums. There's no humanness behind it. It's just an email. And so everyone tends to be overly friendly in email if they're paying attention to kind of overcome that. And I think that's fine. But I also feel like the people who are unprofessional and excuse me, and shitty at their jobs are more easily offended by emails that ask questions like more succinctly.
Yeah.
Or they state things even in a more robust manner and explaining the complexity of a situation. It's like, here's the situation, here's the 3 different angles to this problem we're having, and I want to know like what a solution would be. And some people are like, they get offended by that. And I'm like, and now I'm not necessarily talking about sales rep, I'm talking about consultants to work with. I'm like, look, dude, I'm having to write this email and point out the 3 different ways to describe this problem we're having because of an issue. And in some cases it's because of you, right? I'm spoon feeding you information in an email and I need an answer. And if you throw a hissy fit because you don't like that email, that is your fucking problem. It's not my problem. And I've heard a number of times from people, well, you should have just called me. So you're telling me as a full-grown adult that you need to have a conversation over the phone so you feel better about the same content, right? And in a lot of cases, I do acknowledge that phone calls help kind of lubricate, things and whatever else, and that's true. And that's a very important strategy to employ during whatever times. But personally for me, so I understand that, and I oftentimes will do phone calls because of that. But personally, I think it's bullshit. Regulate yourself as a full-grown adult, right? Regulate yourself. Don't do the baby thing of like, oh, I didn't like that email and the perceived tone in the email, so I'm going to throw a hissy fit. If that's your mentality, I don't want to work with you because these projects are difficult. They're challenging. We have all kinds of problems that are going to happen.
Right, I don't need to do
we need to work
issues
together. And if it's going to be like you making up this made up like, you know, tone in an email because you're illiterate, you don't understand certain words, not my fucking problem, dude. I don't know. I'm thinking of a person in particular now. Like you use that word. I didn't like that. I'm like, you didn't like that word because you didn't understand that word because you're illiterate. That's not my problem, right? The fact that you have like the comprehension level of a fifth grader, like I'm an architect. We have millions of dollars at stake with this client. I have a lot of technical things to review. I use a word it's not like an SAT word either. And if you don't get it and you throw a hissy fit, then then why would I work with you, right? That's your problem. It's not mine. Right. And so I would say I'm a very easy person to work with.
Right.
You just need to be like an adult, but you know, people are like not adults. You know what I mean? Like track your own shit, handle your own shit, handle your own emotions, be professional. It's not difficult. It's not difficult. And I think also part of the frustration I have, and again, I know architects listening are probably like, oh, I have a good story for you, David and Marina. Let me tell you about this one guy I had to work with. And it's because on our side, we can't afford to behave that way in the manner of this person,
well,
because we are held accountable.
I think for anyone who cares about what they do and the clients that they have, you just want to be professional. And there is attitudes and behaviors from anyone who could, you know, be part of a project, an architectural project. That's just you can use those attitudes. You can be unprofessional. You can be childish. You can be emotional. You know, like you don't show up to your boss and like start ranting and you know, throwing hissy fits about the smallest thing. Like grow up. Like
I tell you why. Also, I think that
like deal with your personal stuff and then reply to my email. Like don't just grow up.
Yeah, I know.
Be professional.
And the being professional to me means being objective about stuff, right? And I'll tell you, I think the reason why architects are generally pretty good at being objective and kind of distanced from the emotional component of an email, like I've described, or whatever it is. And the reason why is because we go through architecture school, in which we give design presentations to a panel of people. And when you're a student, you're 18 to 22, 23, whatever it is, it's like a very personal thing. I've poured my heart and my soul into this design, and I've created this thing that I think is hopefully great. And I've spent all night working on it, and I haven't slept for 2 weeks or whatever. And I present it to you. And then what happens? The jury shits on your design, calls you out and says, all these things are wrong with it, blah, 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 blah. And that repeats a bunch of times in school because you get critical feedback. And so we are trained pretty quickly in school to learn how to hear harsh criticism that we don't like, swallow it, and say, okay, didn't enjoy that, but were they right? Yeah, they were kind of right about that thing. Or maybe there was an aspect of what they said that was right. Okay, I'm going to have to improve it. We are trained to do that. We build that. You call it thick skin, I suppose, but when you build the ability to regulate, I don't know if most people go through that exercise of presenting something that they feel is so personal,
no, they don't.
And then have it be critiqued.
And so like in that, I think when anyone in the team did something wrong or isn't doing the right thing, or maybe didn't do anything they were supposed to, I think making yourself accountable and and admitting that maybe you missed something or you didn't perform, or if you are in the wrong, you shouldn't try to blame, in this specific case, the other people for you being in the wrong. Like, that doesn't work like that.
No, it's not productive. And I'm not saying that... Yeah, go ahead.
And it's also, projects is problem. There's a lot of problem solving, right? You don't solve problems with that kind of attitude. You're just adding problems to the problem. So
yeah.
It's really not good.
I agree. So that's the thing. It's like what we're trying to do is solve this problem or the big problem or all of the problems, right? And to do that, it's objectively, it's not mathematical, but it's mathematical in the sense that it is objective. Okay, so this and that plus there minus that divided by whatever gives us that thing. Okay, that's it. You're not happy about it? I don't care. You were offended and upset because you made a mistake or you blame, it doesn't matter. Like, we need to move forward. And so like some of the best people that we've worked with, they acknowledge when they make mistakes. We acknowledge when we make mistakes, and we all just move forward and we work it out. And it's not to say that the way of communication is blunt and without the politeness. So in the case of email, it's not like we're sending emails like, why'd you do that? Period. It's always, hi, so and so. Like, we noticed this issue. We gotta get this resolved. Like, how do we? There's always that stuff in there in my emails. I don't want people thinking that like I'm just sending out all these like crazy messages to folks. But where it becomes again frustrating for me is if I do all of that stuff and you're still coming back at me with attitude, then now we have a problem, right? Because now
I'm going to have to deal with your attitude during that project. And I don't want to have to do that.
And the funny thing is, right?
Yeah,
exactly. And the funny thing is, if you think about the team members on an equal playing field, I'm one of the team members, you're one of the team members. I'm the one that's pointing out that there's an issue. I'm the one that's saying, okay, I'm being polite to you, right? I'm saying like, here's the situation of it. And you're the other team member, and all you're doing is being a whiny baby and not presenting solutions. So really, that's the thing too, it's the psychology of it I don't like, is the people who are like this, they play the victim. And it drives me nuts. I'm like, yeah, but not only are you not contributing to solving the problem, you're also being kind of rude toward me. You're not helping the client. And also you're now saying that you're the victim because you don't like that we're calling out an issue. It's mental. Like, what is this, reverse Uno? No. You know what I mean? And I think it's also something that architects learn how to work in teams, but work in teams where the other team members are architects, because we hold each other accountable in that way, because we understand this. And you said, it's not helping solve the issue. I've said this before in the recording, and this is maybe a strange kind of a sort of tangent or pivot, but I like the design studio in school and also in the office. And I've always thought about it as being kind of like a church, in the sense that in this space, this physical space that we're in, we have to be honest with each other. That's it. We're polite, but we have to be honest about each other. If someone proposes something and it's bad, I have to tell you it's not good, and for the reasons why, and why we might go a different direction. We can't afford to not have those frank conversations. Otherwise, we don't produce good designs if we don't do that. And that is learned as an architect in the design studio in undergraduate school. You learn to think and work that way, even if you're not happy about it. And look, anyone who's made something with their hands, in the computer or in their hands, like the pottery or painting, and you pin it up in front of people, and everyone points and says, these are all the things that are wrong with it. It doesn't feel good, of course not. But you learn to get past that, right? Because we're trying to get closer to the truth. And we need that level of honesty in this church. And so architects are very good at regulating themselves in that way and working with other people that way. And so when we have to interact with someone who's not that way, and they're going to throw kind of hissy fits and have a short fuse, that to us is something I don't comprehend, right? I don't understand why you would behave that way.
Yeah, I think there is other lingering issues probably with that person.
with the architect or with the person?
With the person.
With the person? Yeah, I mean, and contractors I know feel the same. Good contractors feel the same way, because it takes a lot of work to champion a project. And that's really what we have to do as an architect, as a contractor. It's to champion the project, to see it through, to fight through it and get through it, right? And when you have people on your team, again, who are just pulling you down, you don't feel good. You're like, yeah, man, we're doing everything we possibly can to move this project forward, to keep everyone happy, to keep it on budget, on schedule, and with good quality and all of those things. And you can't put a little more effort into this relationship as a sub, as a fabricator, as a material supplier. You can't just do a little bit more. I have to go the extra 120% for you, and still you're not helpful. What is that about, man? What is that about?
I'm glad we said we would not be ranting on this.
I didn't say that. You said that. You can. I'll play the whatever side of things.
I was trying to think, going back to our subject of working with reps, because
and being more
I feel
positive.
I don't know about being more positive, but I was like, It's like, okay, well, what else is there? We did also we did go to IBS a couple years ago now.
Yeah, we were taking a lot of Metamucil at that time.
What?
IBS stands for irritable bowel syndrome.
Oh no! But like
it was a conference. It was not a pleasant
in
conference.
Vegas.
It's gross.
The building event in Vegas, where basically all of the brands you could think of, are there with a booth and some products.
Miralax, Metamucil.
No. Like Tyvek, like, I don't know, window companies, like whatever,
okay.
Right?
We went to different conferences.
And, I don't know that I have. No, I mean, actually, those conferences are also great. There is websites like Ace Lab that are great to browse from when you can't go anywhere. There's showrooms to select products that are, to me, still really good because you can see a lot and in person, which is super helpful. And you make contact with that one rep that gives you their business card, and that's the guy or the gal that you're going to reach out to, right? There is also those conferences or like building expo, thing that happens maybe once a year or so, depending on where you are. This one we went to is called IBS, and it happens in Vegas, and I think in Florida too, although it hasn't happened in Florida for a little while. And I think
go ahead. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
This year was in Vegas too. Oh. But this is also very interesting because it's basically you're going to like all of the showroom in like over 2 days. Yeah. Right? Yeah. It's exhausting. I mean, I have to prepare people who are wanting to go. It's like 2 days of just walking around in this big giant exhibition hall with thousands of booths and products and LED lights and things flashing at you and chocolates and, cheap coffee and all that stuff, right? But this is actually also a good thing to go to because you can cover a lot of ground and see a lot of products and discover a lot of products and ask questions because a lot of these booths actually end up most of the time having people who know the technicalities of the products versus, sometimes you shoot an email to those websites and it's whoever's filtering the email that's going to reply to you. So those could be pretty good. I have to say that some of those booths sucks.
Why? In what way?
Because a lot of them, you don't know what they're selling unless you like start talking to the people. So, if you're trying to like decide like which one to stop at, which one not to stop at, because you can't stop at all of them, it's good to know like what are they selling. Do they even have samples, like mock-ups? Like sometimes they don't.
They're to my chocolates.
If they have chocolates, then that for sure stops. Like you have to know how to get the customer.
Yeah.
But those events are, I think, pretty interesting in terms of finding the stuff.
I wish there was a way to like partake in those events, but have it just be less exhausting. I don't know what the solution would be.
If they were giving you like little, I was gonna say like little motor carts or something to drive around.
Yeah.
Like if somewhat they were making it of a theme park for like building industry.
I mean, it feels that way.
People. Yeah, but it's too much walking.
They need more, like, they can't do it, but they need more, like, food stands dispersed inside of the hall. I mean, they have food stands, obviously, on the outside, but not inside. That would be... Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's I don't think I can go every year. It's too much.
I would love to go every year, but
once every 2 years.
Want to make sure that I'm seeing new stuff every time. You know what I mean? Because I feel like there is a lot of time there is kind of like the boilerplate products that they have, and then there is like the latest stuff that comes out. And I'm mostly interested to see the latest stuff that comes out.
I'm also curious though sometimes, like how many of those products are just gimmicky garbage that aren't going to be around in the long term. Like one of the inherent challenges with buildings is that they're meant to last for 50 to 100 years or whatever the timeline is, and when you have a new product, sometimes it's difficult to know if it's going to work in that kind of span.
Yeah, and it's always kind of projects. In some ways are like concept.
They're experiments, yeah.
They're experiments, right? Like there's a new product. Well, let's use it on this project, and we're gonna be one of the first ones using it, and kind of see in 50 years.
And I would go so far as to say, like, again, every house is a little bit of an experiment. It's a one-off, never been done before.
It's like a concept car.
It is. Every house is a concept car made with a fair amount of off-the-shelf components to a degree, but the number of components is so large and the flexibility of each component is so big that it ends up being like just the whole thing's fully custom every time. Unless you're building a tract house, which is getting repeated, and then there's some kind of, let's say, efficiency with that or lesser variables, but then the size potential. It's complicated. I don't know. There's a lot of things, and that's why it really does take a whole, literally hundreds of people, if you include everyone that has touched the project in total, to put together a house. That's what it requires. And again, it just takes one or two to not do their job for a really big problem to occur. And so despite my complaining,
it's
the sales reps are
amazing
critical.
That, it's pretty amazing that we can put buildings together in the way that we do, in this country, let's say, like so many people, so many things involved, so many things that could go wrong.
So much coordination.
So many egos and different personalities. And
yeah,
it's kind of a Christmas miracle every time,
Again, that's why, once we find people that we like in any architect, they tend to reuse them, because then it's the security, right? We know that they're going to be good to work with. And also we know that every project is going to be hit with unknown, unforeseen, weird problems. Every project, every project. Doesn't matter how long you've been practicing, every project, right? And so your team needs to be robust in the way that it's going to allow you with them to problem solve stuff and not freak out when there's an issue and not come up with excuses with an issue, but instead say, okay, let's work together and figure out what we can do here. And even to someone like, okay, I actually don't think that we can sort this for you. And so maybe you have to use someone else. Just, again, working towards solving the thing at hand, the many, many things at hand. You need to have that good team. And this is a separate conversation, but the client is part of that as well, I think.
Yeah, the client too. I think then the client is the biggest player in some ways in projects. So being a good team player is key.
If they're going to be involved, some clients are really hands off.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So I don't know. If you're an architect listening, let us know what 5 things or whatever things you would want from the ideal sales rep. What? So we listed CAD drawings, photographs, material samples, them being responsive. What else would you want from them? And as a sales rep, I don't know. What do you want from architects? And
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, thank you everybody for listening to this show. If you like what we do, please leave us a review, subscribe on all of our channels out there. You can go on our website, secondstudiopod.com, where all the episodes are listed. We're also on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and more. What else? We have social media, Instagram, Second Studio Pod, and Fame Architects is the office. If you have any questions, anything you want to share, like David mentioned, you can send a text message or call and leave a voicemail to our hotline, 213-222-6950. And stay tuned. There is a lot more coming up this year. Exciting stuff.
Right? So, are you sure about that?
I'm looking at you. So you tell me.
I'm getting sleepy. It's time for lunch. Okay, sounds good. Talk soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.